guys, and welcome to Cooking with Fat Julie, where I share tips and tricks in the kitchen, as well as quick and easy recipes. Today I'm going to show you how to make a Blanquette De Veau, which loosely translated is a veal stew. The reason I'm going to do this is because I've had a request for some French recipes. So let's get started. So for me it is the night before. You can do this 2 nights before, or you can skip this step altogether and just make everything at once. I like to put my meat into the fridge to marinate at least the night before I'm going to make it. So I'm going to take my veal, and it's still in big pieces, as you can see. And you can use whatever kind of whitish meat you want. I'm using veal. And I'm going to throw in about a cup of wine, a half a chicken bouillon cube, a half a vegetable bouillon cube, and then I'm just going to cover it with water until all the meat is covered. There we go. And I'm going to mix those bouillon cubes in just a little bit. Now I'm going to cover it and put it in my fridge overnight. On one of my previous videos, I begged for information on how to cut onions without making your eyes burn and water. Somebody replied to me and said that I need to run my onion under cold water and run my knife under cold water every 3 or 4 cuts. So I'm going to try that. Let's see what happens. Burning. Yeah. I thought it was working, but it's not. I think I'm gonna rip my eyes out. Yeah. This was a good idea, but I don't think it works. Since this recipe requires 2 or 3 carrots cut up, I'm just going to show you how I do that. So I have taken the skin off of my carrots and cut off the 2 ends, and I'm going to put them on my cutting board. And I'm going to find a side that is kind of flat, and I'm going to start cutting, but diagonally, like this. So you're going to want your carrots to be about the same thickness with every cut. And just go ahead and cut those diagonally until you get to the end. And there you go. So I have my veal that's been marinating overnight. And I've taken a little bit of butter and put it into my pot. I've let it melt. And what I'm going to do is take my pieces of meat out and throw them in the pot and cook them just a little bit so that the outside of the pieces of meat turn golden. I'm going to take them out of the marinade, but I'm going to keep the marinade because I'm going to use it later. So here we go. So my meat is in here. I'm just going to stir it up just to make sure that all of the pieces get browned. And once all of the pieces are browned, I'm going to throw on 2 or 3 tablespoons of flour, depending on how big of a meal you're going to make. And I'm going to mix that up well with my meat. And that's going to help the flour not to clump when it's cooking, and will give me a thick sauce. So as you can see, the outside of my meat is now cooked. It's got a little bit of color, but the inside is still very pink. So what I want to do now is add the marinade that I used To marinate my meat overnight, I'm going to add my carrots that I cut up. I'm going to add my onions. And I'm going to add a can of sliced up mushrooms. You can use fresh mushrooms if you like, but I was excited about this can of 4 different types of mushrooms. And I'm going to stir that all up. I'm going to add a little bit of water just to make sure that my meat is covered. And I'm going to let that cook. Since I'm using a pressure cooker, I'm only going to need to cook it for about 20 to 30 minutes. If you're using just a regular pot with a lid on the stove, you're going to need probably between an hour and a half to 2 hours for that to cook. Once it's cooked, then we're going to deal with making sure the sauce is as thick as we like it. So let's come back once this is cooked. Everything is cooked through, my meat, my carrots, the onions, everything. But as you can see, it's still really watery. And what I want is a sauce. So what I've done is I've taken a glass of lukewarm water and I've added flour to it and I've whisked that in with a fork. Doing it that way is going to prevent lumps from forming and will help my sauce to thicken. At this point, my Blanquette De Veau is on really low heat. I'm going to add my flour mixture. There we go. That poured right in. There were no lumps. That's perfect. So I'm going to stir that in. And that's going to help it to thicken. Now, to add some color and taste, I'm going to add just under a cup of crème fraîche or sour cream. This is 20 cl, so it's about 200 milliliters. I'm going to add some lemon juice. It says the juice of 1 lemon, so I'm just going to use my little lemon juice and throw some in. I'm also going to throw in some green olives. Now because it's white meat, we want green olives. If you're cooking with red meat, you're going to want black olives. Now my recipe doesn't call for this, but this is the way we like it, so I threw in about a cup. I'm also going to put in some salt and pepper to taste. So this means just add as much as you want until it tastes the way you want it to taste. And I'm going to continue to stir that all up until it thickens the way I want it to thicken. And once it's as thick as I want it, then I can serve it right away. Keep in mind that you can make this the day before and then just reheat it the next day and it will actually taste a lot better, which means that any leftovers are also going to taste a lot better. So I will show it to you once it's thickened up the way I want it. Okay, so here it is. I added my extra flour. I brought it to a boil for about a minute just to make sure that flour cooked, and it's a lot thicker now. I've taken it off the heat to let it cool off enough so that we can actually eat it, and it's going to thicken some more as it cools off. Now I'm just cooking some rice, and you can serve this over rice, pasta, whatever you want, or just eat it as it is. Bon appétit!